Kaelen Ohm, welcome to An Actor Despairs. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you on. I was just talking to you off air that I was going through your site, and I'm like a very, very, very pretentious music video and music snob. And like, to be honest, I'm a dick about it. And your stuff is awesome. And I never say that. I'm not just blowing smoke up. Like, it is beautiful. I mean, it's sonically and visually what you're doing. Like, I watched that one that you did in the thunderstorm, I believe. And
Desert
oh
Storm?
man, yeah, was it Black Window? Am I saying that right?
Oh, Black Moon.
Black Moon, Black Moon, Black Moon. Something, yeah, some kind of
Some
orifice.
things about
Yeah,
black moons or
yeah,
dancing or storms or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
But man, you have such an eye. And then I had the pleasure of watching Hit and Run, and now you're coming over to my world, to the acting world. So what can't you do? I love
Oh,
it.
thank you so much.
If it's
Thank you.
cool with you, though, let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up?
Sure. Yeah. I'm from a little mining town, little ski town in British Columbia in Canada called Fernie. It's about a population of 4,000, but it inflates in the winter time seasonally because of the ski hill. And grew up kind of in the woods as a kid in the
Oh,
woods,
so
really.
quite rural.
Yeah, I mean it's about 3 hours from Calgary, Alberta, but it's in tucked into into a little valley in the Rockies, and beautiful place. Unfortunately, it's been subject to some clear cutting these past few years, and
Oh no.
there's coal mines in the area. That's really where the town sort of found its boom. I believe in the early 1900s, but it was my little landscape growing up, and it's a beautiful place.
And I'm curious because you truly are an artist. I mean, you're an editor, you're a musician, like you are a real artist. How
Mm.
did this whole thing, like, are your parents artists? Like, like I'm so curious how this all started to happen for you.
Thank you for saying that. It's kind of interesting. I grew up the first 2 years of my life. I was in a little cabin, actually off grid, between Cranbrook and Kimberley, which are two neighboring towns about an hour away from Fernie, where I grew up most of my childhood. And so I was really like no electricity, no running water, in the
At
woods with
your
my
house?
parents for the first 2 years of my life. And then my entire upbringing through school and high school, I was really an athlete. I was a ski racer and played all of the sports in school, soccer and basketball, volleyball and track and all of that. And um, I had told a
Kind of thinking you were going to
relative,
do the Olympic track, not to go, not go
I
for a
mean,
Canadian cliche, but sorry.
no, I
No.
mean, I think I had been in the competitive world with all those sports, and I suppose I always had big visions for myself, but there was something about film that I always knew. I always knew I would go into film. And apparently I told a relative when I was two, when they said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" It's kind of embarrassing. If I'm telling the honest truth, I think I said famous, which I don't obviously would have no idea
Any honest person has thought
what
that at some point,
that,
Yeah.
sure. Um, my parents had taken me to a drive-in movie theater when I was like tiny, and
Oh
apparently I
God,
sat.
I missed those.
Yeah, they had like an old Ford Econoline van, and my dad had bolted my car seat to the motor, which was in between the front seats, like facing the window. You're supposed to put baby car seats facing backwards, but mine was fully facing the window so I could see the road as a baby. And I guess that was like my first experience with films, was this drive-in movie theater. And I just stuffed my face with popcorn and didn't blink once, and then told my grandmother and my aunt that I wanted to be a part of this world. And I think that it was something I just never stopped thinking about growing up. And I worked at the movie theater in my hometown through high school, so I got to watch a lot of movies there.
Was there?
And
I'm sorry, going back to
no,
the drive-in. What do you remember the film?
no, I definitely don't. Apparently I was really like two. I That would be awesome if I did
Yeah,
remember,
yeah,
if it
that's a,
was like
yeah,
if I
yeah,
was that moved.
yeah.
I should ask. It's funny that I haven't asked them, actually. I don't even know if they would remember. But I really grew up in like through high school playing sports, and it's funny because I started applying to acting schools to move right out of high school into that. And I had done drama in school and was always artistic and into creativity. And I had been a dancer since I was 10, and I did figure skating as well for a little while. So that I was in the sort of like movement arts
Got it.
in a sense. But then yeah, I decided I was going to go to acting school, and I kind of looked into some programs. There was the acting sort of Bachelor of Arts at Ryerson University and
All
Vancouver
Canadian
Film
schools.
School. Yeah, I
Huh.
mean, I had sort of maybe had an idea about USC or NYU, but being this kind of, you know, kid from a small town, though I had large aspirations, I'm not really sure that those schools felt entirely accessible to me
Yeah.
right out of high school without any kind of like
Life
strong
experience.
post, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
strong secondary arts program or something like that. And also financially, especially with the dollar at that time, I mean, it would have been just an
I
extraordinary
went to
amount of money that
NYU
I
and
couldn't
I'm
afford. Good for
$250,000 in
you.
debt. It's
Nice
no, it's
one.
so dumb. You know?
Oh, it's a tragedy, the whole
Yeah.
student debt thing, really. But and I had, just to sort of backtrack to move into the story about why I decided not to go to acting school and why I went to film school for film production was in my skiing years. I had gotten in a ski accident and broke my back pretty severely, and that kind of changed the trajectory of my I guess involvement in sports and dance. And I think I sort of knew that acting was a craft that relied so heavily on the physical form, and especially because I knew I wanted to do film and television on the way that you looked. And I guess I created this rationale that if something else ever happened to me, I couldn't act, what would I do? So I thought I should go to film school, learn how films are made, because I'm really curious about that too. And then I'll just make my way through the back door as an actor, because also for some reason I thought, I don't think I'm going to be the person who is picked out of the cattle call and,
Yeah.
you know, given the opportunity. I didn't really sort of see myself as the chosen one ever. And I thought,
Me
so
either. I
young, I
get
was like,
that's
I'm
why I
gonna have
got a
to
podcast.
right. You gotta do what you gotta do, you know? Yeah. And so I think I just decided, and sort of I decided I was like making my own way into it before I even tried. And that's what sort of took me to Vancouver Film School right out of high school. And then I kind of just left my body and went into my brain and started focusing on art and not really doing sports anymore. And it was this
Was
total
there a
shift.
period of mourning of saying goodbye to sports?
No, it's funny. I don't, I can be sentimental with goodbyes, but I also am someone who just kind of like steps into the next thing, and whatever I just left is kind of gone. Like I don't think um I didn't mourn it too heavily, and it's something that is still very much a part of my life, you know, fitness and movement. It's something that I'm super appreciative, actually, that I did all of those things growing up, because I think it informs so much of what you do, just having body awareness in certain ways, and especially as an actor, all
Yeah.
of my experience playing all of those sports and doing dance, I don't feel there's something to hang on to. If you leave your body, you have some ability to come back to it with those types of practices if you can't do it through like your acting training, you know?
Yeah,
Does that make
absolutely.
sense?
100%. I completely identify. And I'm curious, you know, because obviously now, I mean, God, Vancouver kind of could give LA for a run for its money. Was it at the time, was the industry as present there as it is now when you went there?
Yeah, so I went while I was in school for film production, there was a lot filming. A few of the folks that I went to school with got jobs as PAs on like big Hollywood movies and were working night shifts and then coming to school during the day.
Wow.
And I ended up being one of those people. I got a job as a PA on X-Men 3,
Oh,
um,
awesome.
which was filming kind of it started, I think, only a month or two before I finished my program. So there was only a slight crossover there. But that was an interesting experience, being able to just kind of be on those film sets. And even though I was a PA, I was able to kind of volunteer myself to be the Video Village PA as much as I
Oh,
possibly
nice.
could
I love it.
be. Yeah, and just kind of sit and watch the actors and watch the monitor. And
And
it
and
was
and that's
just,
like a big budget film to have that experience. I
oh
mean,
God.
yeah, no,
Yeah. I mean, there's like Ian McKellen and Halle Berry and Hugh Jackman and Elliot Page now.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
One another Canadian finest.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
They're amazing. They actually were a really cool presence for me at that time. I
yeah.
think having another Canadian, they were super friendly and sort of brought me in moments, just having sweet conversation on set and just letting me into sort of maybe that world a little bit. And I think it was really inspiring to see someone who was Canadian and from a small town and so down to earth, just kind of coming out of doing hard candy and into X-Men. And I was like, okay, there's a path that can be paved in that,
Yeah,
coming from that world. Of course, I didn't have something like Trailer Park Boys behind me
yeah.
like they did, but it was, yeah, pretty cool to be able to see all those people work, and Philippe Rousselot as the DP. It was just,
Oh,
everything
amazing.
was so massive to look at.
I mean, I did go for acting, but I had a lot of friends in the NYU film program. And I'm curious for you and for the Americans listening, and also for the Canadians, just so you can compare to the American one. Here in America, it's like the first 2 years you kind of do the Super 8 and like all these kind of class things. And it's only in the final 2 years that you really, particularly the final year, where you start to make your own film. And even though it's not really till grad school where you get to like make a real film. So how does Canadian film school work for all the aspiring people listening?
Well, I hear you say that, and my heart breaks a little bit, because I wanted to have that sort of, that much of a dense experience with schooling, but Vancouver Film School is like a 12-month intensive program.
Oh,
It's just,
wow.
you're in it, and it's like, I think it was 2 months off 1 week, or 2 months on 1 week off for 12 months. And so you basically, I remember, if I recall correctly, we walked into the building, had a little sort of group meeting in the theater, and
Yeah.
they sent us off with cameras that afternoon to shoot some documentary style stuff. It
Just
was like, just
avant-garde, have
in
fun. Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Just in it. I think we had our first little documentary class with a man named George Johnson, who is amazing, and I will never forget him. He worked with the National Film Board for many years as a documentary producer, I believe. And he was, I think documentary was the first project that we went into. We did little mini docs, and then we pitched to do longer documentaries. And then we went right into short films, like 2 rounds of short films, basically. And they kind of operated it similarly to how the industry works, where you have to try out for, for the lead roles, directing. You have to pitch the script and bring your vision. If you want to direct someone else's script, if you want a DP, you have to have sort of scored in the top 6 for the onset practicum exam kind of
Oh,
a thing.
wow.
So it was all sort of very competitive, and there was only 6 documentaries, and then in total 12 short films, like 6 for each round. So we didn't really get, like, unfortunately, we didn't get a lot of history or theory, or a lot of opportunity to really examine the process and strip things down and get
It was a
really
crash
deep into
course.
understanding. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like, how resourceful are you? How motivated are you? How sort of naturally talented in a way, or like, do you get it?
Yeah.
Here's some resources, like, go do it. And you have this badge now, this sort of diploma on your CV. I think Vancouver Film School is fairly highly
respected.
regarded.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they have an incredible animation program that's very well known, I believe. But the film production program it's a good thing to have on your resume if you want to get into the industry afterwards. So yeah, we kind of, you got a bit of cinematography, a bit of editing, producing, a bit of set design experience. I did mostly production design, directing, and editing, I think, in my time there.
And
We're sort
back
of
then,
more,
was it Final Cut like it was for us, or was it?
we actually started on Avid
Oh
in the school
wow,
in school, and then actually I left Vancouver after X-Men wrapped because I got asked to be an editor for these heli ski movies.
sick!
For
Kind of brings
this
it back
guy.
home.
I was like, well, I
Yeah,
know this world for
yeah.
sure. And it was a gig, and I was really interested in editing. So I moved to Calgary and was editing for a guy named John Eves, who was a James Bond stunt double in the 80s. He was like the Willie Bogner model for all these fancy ski clothes in the 80s. I think he was an Olympic aerialist and ski ballet uh, performer, actually. I don't know if you knew that existed. It's quite
I did
something
not.
to watch.
That's
Yeah, you can
awesome.
watch like people do a pas de deux on skis
Wow.
in a
I'm
competitive.
never. Yeah, humanity always amazes me in all the right and wrong ways, and that's the right way. That's
Sure.
so wonderful. And I'm curious. While you were doing film school, was there a part of you that like kind of missed acting, or were you acting in your friends' films? Like, where was your head on that horizon?
Yeah, that was sort of the strange thing about it all was I just wanted to be acting like the whole time. And even when I started doing my own films afterwards, it was, I'm directing other people, and I threw myself in a music video or two here and there, but it was literally something I thought of like every day through high school, through all my 20s, until I finally, like at 28, stepped away from music and directing and decided to go for it.
I took a break as well, so I really identify with that. Um,
Mm.
Forgive me because now I also forgot music. So what in Vancouver were you doing music as well there? When did the music really start?
The music started in Calgary.
In Calgary, so before
Yeah,
Vancouver. Okay.
no, afterwards.
Oh, the hella skiing. Got it.
The heli skiing job.
Yeah.
I was doing the editing for ski films only for about a year maybe, and then I actually was hired full time as a production coordinator at a production company in town, and so I sort of did the whole, film production world, office world for a little while. But I'm really grateful for that experience. They're called White Iron Productions. I don't believe they exist any longer, but they were initially a subsidiary of CBC or CFCN, or sorry, maybe it was CTV. I can't remember, but they were doing a lot of work in the area, and I'm so grateful for that time because it gave me the opportunity to kind of start shooting my own stuff. They had some gear in house, and I was allowed to kind of take the camera when I wanted
Yeah.
to. So there was this little HVX 200 camera that I started shooting friends' dance performances and my own little music video projects. And that kind of began as a side, not hustle really, but just a place to explore my own work as a director and editor while I was sort of coordinating more corporate stuff, really.
Yeah.
And then I started playing music a couple of years into living in Calgary, and the whole indie band world was very much alive in the city at that time, and I think it still is. I just haven't lived there for many
Yeah.
years. Well, actually, I'm here right
But yeah,
now,
you got
so I'm
Nardwuar in
there.
Vancouver, I mean.
Yeah, yeah. So I started playing in bands, and actually started touring a little bit too. So I kind of started splitting my time um, between directing and editing some projects. I was traveling a little bit, doing fashion films and music videos and things, and then would go off on the road on tour, and that was kind of my main thing, all while thinking about being an actor. And
That's
I
so
kind
funny.
of
I was a roadie before I got back into acting.
oh, funny. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
so many ways you can avoid actually doing it, It's
It's one of those things, man. But we're meant to
yeah.
come to it when we do. And so then while you were doing those films, you walked away from the hell skiing thing after a year, and then you started doing these things. And then did music become your prerogative for a while?
Yeah, I suppose it did. I joined a band that was touring quite a bit, and I sort of put directing aside, and then ended up moving to Toronto and was active with that band for a while starting to really pursue acting.
Got it.
So the move to Toronto was really to step into that commitment and actually get myself some training and an agent. I had an agent in Calgary, and I had done a little gig on Hell on Wheels, the AMC
Yeah.
series that was shooting
Great.
here for
Yeah.
many years. So that was really cool to
So that was a
book that.
co-star, guest star
Oh, it
sort
was
of.
an actor role. Yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah.
one word
That's
of a
it.
line that got
Uh,
cut in the end.
hey, you got the
But
credit.
I
That's
was
all that
there.
matters. That's
Exactly. That was the credit that probably got me the agent that was so sweet to take me on when I got to Toronto, because I did the full on, like, went online, looked at every agency, did the research, had like an A list, a B list, a C list, probably a D list. And I didn't hear back from any of the A-listers, actually, except for one who I taped for, and they were very quickly like, thank you, you're not ready yet, but get back to us later.
cool. Yeah.
And it was nice.
Yeah.
And then I kind of went through the B roll and then maybe the C roll, and very, very sweet woman took me on, and we got some little gigs, some actor and principal role stuff. Every job has been a little bigger than the last, which was a good sign for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that started a bit of a path. And in the meantime, I had just kind of started putting myself through this full-time boutique acting school training
Canadian Film
program.
Center or
Well, that came a couple of years after I had moved to Toronto, which was a huge one for me. But
and you
I
that
was
was for
going,
acting.
yeah, that was for acting. So
Do you
the
know Gia
Canadian,
Sadu?
yeah,
Yeah, she just did the show.
yeah, I saw that actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. She's sweet. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so well, I was in Toronto doing all these classes, just so as many as I could get my hands on, really, and kind of put myself through that boutique schooling for 2 years. And then I applied to the Canadian Film Center and was really kind of blown away to get into that. Um, and that was over 2017. And I think that really gave me not only the first real, what felt like maybe more traditional or sort of legitimate training, because some
Yeah.
of it was with theater mentors. A lot of my classmates had already been to the National Theater School, and they were like, okay, I've done this thing before. I've
Yeah.
laid on the ground and rolled and moaned for years. Like, I want to be on set now. I want to learn these other things. And I'm
Yeah.
there
Yeah. Of
going,
course.
okay, I've been on set a million times and it's a place where I'm really comfortable, but I want to learn all these basics, that I haven't really ever gotten into, because I just kind of threw myself into on-screen classes
Yeah.
and Meisner and things like that. And so coming out of the CFC was huge because it allowed me to kind of step into having some more reputable representation.
Yeah. I was gonna say you definitely had to have flexed up, right? That's a huge. Yeah.
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 Yeah, they really, in some ways, I think that school is, I think they sort of see themselves as a bit of a star maker program in a sense, because everyone they're bringing on is actually already quite established,
Yeah.
and it's giving them the resources to be seen a little bit more, especially in the Toronto community. So I was super grateful just to kind of be welcomed into that community by way of having done that program, and also was able to just experience some incredible mentorship. Lindy Davies was one of our mentors in that program, and she's worked with Kate Blanchett and Michelle
Wow.
Williams, and having her insight and just her experience coming from the theater. She did a lot of political theater in the 70s and 80s in the UK, and she's just so raw and real. And she kind of gave me the glimpse. I don't know if you've had this experience where I finally was like, I think I get what acting is now.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
okay, I think I actually finally understand what I'm trying to do here, because I
Yeah.
really felt in some ways like I get exactly what this is, but I kind of actually have no idea what I'm doing or how to find what feels like just a satisfied sense of truth in the work,
Totally.
you know, and be like, okay, this is cool. I feel like I got through the lines and maybe I looked emotional, but I feel like shit because I wasn't actually connected.
Were
And
you
I don't really
guys
even
doing productions there?
little on camera exercises mostly.
Okay.
We were a part of some of the director's lab and writer's lab projects here and there, but our big pieces were our what's called close-ups, which is they're sort of character studies, like 5-minute character studies that we did as our final project as the Actors Conservatory. And so we, as individual actors, created a character, and then we collaborated with a writer from the writer's lab, and then produced these little shorts, which was, I
Love
would
it.
say, the most like, yeah, sort of most fully formed project that we did at that time.
That's awesome. And then how many years was that program?
It's 7 months.
Oh,
It's
seven
like,
months. Okay. Wow.
yeah, just every day for 7 months, another intensive program, and then you're kind of just out in the world, which I was really grateful for, because at that point in my life I had considered again trying to go down to the States and like
Yeah.
maybe get into Tisch or something, and do that, just do step into some school that I knew would secure me most likely a career afterward.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at my age and time and how long it had taken me to actually do it, and I was like, I think I need to just get as much information in a short period of time as I can, and really just trust that I'm going to learn with experience. And that's kind of always how I have done things anyways, just to throw myself in the hot pot and learn as I go, you know, just rise to the challenge. And
Totally feel that. I'm the
yeah.
same. And so when you graduated and you got this better rep, did you start auditioning a lot more?
Yeah, well, it was actually interesting because the rep that I had at that time wanted to move slowly out of the program, and I had a totally different idea about it. I was really ready to hit the ground running.
Yeah, of
So I
course.
actually didn't, I auditioned a shockingly little amount the year after that, and it was really difficult for me. So I actually moved agencies, and I moved into the to the characters, which is where I am now. And they had always kind of been like the holy grail of Canadian agencies for
Is
me.
that the
And
one that said call me back later?
no, actually,
Oh, that
it's
would have been such a
not.
cool story.
No,
You should send them hit and run.
I think they actually had turned me down like 3 times over
Oh
the
man.
years,
I'm gonna
and
have to give them a
finally,
call. Be like, you know who you're fucking with?
yeah, exactly. Your loss.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, so I moved over to them, and then things just went much. It was, I think it's a huge part of it is having a team that really sees you and
It's
sees your own
everything.
vision for yourself. Yeah, because I think that the way that I'm likely perceived, you know, through my headshot and who I am and where I come from are two very, very different things. And as much as I want to be able to step into any role on any show, there's definitely a certain type of work that I want to be doing and that I just kind of feel more called to and connected to. And my agent now, she just kind of saw that from the beginning, and we were together for, I think, not even a year when the audition came up for Hit and Run. And
Wow.
so we had done, there was I think a role on a Canadian show called Murdoch Mysteries, which is like in its 15th season or something.
Nice. One of
And
those long lasting.
just, yeah,
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
mainstay. And then I did a little feature film called Queen of Spades.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and then that summer Hit and Run came up, and for both of us, and my agent had taken me on
So
as
is this pre-pandemic summer or 2020? Like
this was
what
2019. Yeah.
2019. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of right before.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was sort of new, taking on her own roster. She had been the executive assistant of one of the head agents at the characters, and so they sort of both took me on, but she was my head person and was building up her roster. So when this happened, it really happened for both of us, which was so
Yeah.
exciting, because we were kind of in similar places in our careers where we were both hungry. And I think that's something, in having moved over to that agency and partnering with someone who was just super talented, had been under the wing of a veteran for a long time, and was just totally ready to do it. Like, we both have just kind of had the same steam, which I think is really important when you're a new person in a bigger place, to have someone who's hasn't been around for a ton of time and then has a really successful roster already. You kind of need someone who
Thirsty.
wants to do the run with you.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that audition came up in August of June of 2019, and then a couple months later the news came through, and it kind of just went on from there.
Congratulations. That's so
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you
And
so much.
do you are you Jewish? Do you speak Hebrew?
I'm not Jewish. I learned to speak a little bit of Hebrew.
But phonetically?
Pardon me?
Phonetically, where you map out the sounds of the words?
Oh yeah. I can't read.
Yeah.
I can't read Hebrew. I do want to learn more though, because we went over in 2020 to shoot the rest of the season, and we're paused like 4 weeks out of wrapping the first season. So we had to wait a year to go back and finish like the last 10% of the season.
Wow.
And the first year I hadn't taken on learning any Hebrew besides the tiny little bit that I do speak in the show. And then the second year I was like, what am I doing? I really need to step into like actually learning this language so I can communicate more when I'm out there, and it will also help the scene as well. Luckily, I shot that scene this year, so I learned more prior to my leaving the beginning of 2021 to go finish. I knew more Hebrew then.
And so you guys shot in Tel Aviv, because it's Israel's first piece for Netflix, right?
Maybe original.
Got it.
Maybe original, but Fauda, which Lior Raz and Avi Zakharov, who created our show, had created Fauda in Israel, and Netflix picked it up for distribution on its maybe first season, and then I think have now partnered up with them to do subsequent seasons. But it might be the first time Israel has like a Netflix original.
That was IMDb trivia, but that's where I pulled
Hopefully I got that right.
It was great. And who knows if IMDb trivia is even right, but how was going there? Was that a wild experience,
Yeah, it's such an amazing place. I had wanted to go to the Middle East just in general for a long time. It's one place that I haven't traveled in my life, and Tel Aviv in particular is just an incredibly vibrant city. The food is incredible, as you would hear from anyone who's been there. It's quite gentrified. So, as a North American, if you desire any of the conveniences that
you can find at Chipotle,
not that so much, but you can get a green juice and a fancy coffee with like oat milk and shop and all of that stuff. But it was just amazing to be there, and all of the Israeli actors in the show are all really incredible actors. It was just so cool to have that camaraderie with people from a totally different culture across the world, and you're just all on set. You all know the kind of language of being on set together, and the language of film, and just sort of bringing people together from all over the world. It was the most international project by far that I've been a part of, and especially as an actor. So just to work at that level and then have just such an amazing crew and cast of people, it was a pretty surreal experience. And I just find myself ever more grateful for it as time goes on.
I'm so happy for you. And it brought back the dance and the movement, right? You got to use that.
Yeah, it was really cool actually that I got to do that. I had really hoped to be able to do something with dance in my acting work. And I think this was kind of the only way that could have been done, given that the Batsheva company is a contemporary company and they're much more abstract in form. given my injury history and just where I'm at in my life now, if it had been classical ballet or something, there's no way I would have been cast.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of this perfect little opportunity to be able to do that, and also just experience the professional world of dance in that way. I had sort of brushed the periphery of it in my life and spent time on stage and in studios with companies, but it was extra special to be able to do that in Israel with that company. They're just really quite exceptional.
Yeah.
The dancers and the choreography. Ohad Narin is the artistic director who created Gaga, which has now become a fairly worldwide, or how would I say this? A fairly like well-known approach around the world. I think there's Gaga classes happening all over the place now,
Oh,
because
wow.
they're also created for regular people. They have Gaga dancers classes and Gaga people classes. So people in their 70s with old injuries can go in and do a Gaga class. And
Yeah.
it's really accessible to everyone, and it's amazing. So there was just so many reasons why it felt right to be sort of dancing in that context, I suppose.
Yeah. And do you feel like this is the first time you really got to like sink your teeth into a character and cultivate it and do all the things that you've been wanting to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my character Danielle in the show, she's incredibly complex and
Yeah,
layered,
to
and
say the
in
least.
some, yeah,
Yeah.
and to be, totally honest, in some ways, kind of stepping into a role like that was super terrifying. And then in some ways, because she is so layered and the story takes place over so much time, it was equally as like nerve-wracking as it was relieving that, taking on a lead role in a feature where you're seen in every film, like consistency and storyline and arc needs to be really on point, or it's going to be kind of jarring, right?
Yeah.
But with this, I was like, well, if I didn't totally nail it, we're kind of, you don't know what year it is, at what point in, their relationship it
Yeah.
is. I kind of got to explore those moments in time as they were like these sort of standalone periods, as opposed to having to relate to the moment before, or what was coming next all the time. So it was an incredibly free experience to just to kind of go into every scene as its own little beast. And it just made me more hungry for the next thing, just to have more responsibility and more of a challenge. And a lot of the scenes that had initially been written into the scripts got cut prior to even shooting, because we started running out of time, and we had shot all of the New York scenes prior in the fall of
Oh,
2019. So by the
wow.
time we got to Israel, they were like really trying to, I think, get things done, and they had started to piece things together, so it all was becoming more clear at that time. And so given that my character was shot pretty much exclusively in Tel Aviv, a lot of those scenes were left out, and we didn't even shoot them. So in the end, I didn't have as much as I had hoped, I think, or
Yeah.
that I just felt really ready for. But once again, having it be sort of my first big role, especially in an American series like that, I sort of took it as just okay, well, it's better to have 20 or 30 scenes through a first season of a show that you can really nail, as opposed to being handed way too much in your
Totally.
first go and
Yeah.
maybe have some missteps. And um, I think it was all, turned out how it was supposed to.
Well, you absolutely rose to the occasion. It's beautiful
Oh,
work, and
thank you.
I'm just getting to know you, but I'm so proud of you. And while you
Mhm.
were doing this all post Canadian Film Center, was music still happening and everything? Were you still creating?
Yeah, I started doing my own project called AMAARA, which is my middle name. It's just spelt with an extra A in the middle. I started doing that as a side project to the full-time touring band that I was in. And once I left that band, AMAARA really became kind of my way to keep music in my life. And um, I it took me a long, long time to put out my first 6-song album. And And then actually it was in 2019, when I was in the process of auditioning for Hit and Run, I came back to Calgary and made the second album in like a course of 10 days. It was crazy. I just decided to get together with an old bandmate and see what could happen in a really short period of time, and wanted to do an album in a couple of weeks, and it ended up all being done in the 9 days that we had before I got called to New York to start the show.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be a longer record, but it ended up just being another 6-track album, and I did a bunch of videos for that over COVID, but I haven't toured that record at all. And then I kind of came back from Israel in March back to Calgary into the same studio with the same collaborator, Brock Geiger, who I made my last record, Heartspeak, with. And we've been in the studio now since mid-March, and we're just putting literally the finishing touches today on the album and going to mix it in Ontario.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so it's been kept alive, and I'm really hoping for an opportunity to share it in a live setting more now. It's becoming more realized, and it's, just goes hand in hand with trying to be more of my own voice. It's always important to just keep trying to find your own voice, your own truth, I guess.
Well, you've done a beautiful job. Your music is outstanding, and I highly recommend everyone listening. I'm going to link it below. It's so beautiful, and your single "Awake" is the one that I listened to, and the video was awesome as well. And I'm so curious, what's next for you?
Well, I guess this record will come out soon. I'll start to roll it out with some videos, hopefully. And I'm auditioning at the moment. The show just came out on the 6th, which is really cool.
Yeah.
After a long wait, it's finally in the
Must
world.
be cool.
So,
I'm sure you're getting some
yeah.
cool and very weird DMs.
What's the weirdest thing? Maybe I shouldn't say this but
no, say it.
No, I keep somehow my WhatsApp information is like, I'm getting like phone calls today, and I don't know, and it's like on private, but I don't know and I don't know if that means they have my phone number. I have to figure this stuff out. It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about this.
Well, if you need security, I got your back, free of charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, social media, it's a whole weird thing that I've actually like not been a part of for the past 10 months, and put my account back just for the show. And if there's a way to use those platforms for things you believe in the future, but it's a whole bizarre part of our world now that I just am really not relating to much at all.
I totally understand. If it weren't for the show, I'd be off. But where is home now? Is home LA, or is home, like, where is home?
Yeah, it's my stuff is in a place in Topanga. I haven't been there since last December, but I guess that would be like the closest thing I have to a home right now. And it's kind of over the years, really, wherever I am, because I've moved around so much that I've had to just adapt to making home, a hotel room or an Airbnb or friend's place. But that's one thing that I'm feeling in my life right now, is where can I put down roots and where can I really feel home. And I spent the last month in BC, out on the coast, Vancouver and Victoria and the Pacific Northwest, and the Gulf Islands are just so stunning. And I really feel called back to to that area of the world. So we'll see. I see like a California BC split happening, but
I love it. I love your energy.
Answer is like, oh, thank you.
You got a very like red wine soothing. We should get a project going. I feel like we could do some cool stuff.
Funny. Yeah. Nice.
But, I love your work. I like, truly, you're a visionary, and seriously, I'd love to collaborate. It's so rare that I see someone with like a taste that I'm like, I love that. And
cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I'm so excited for all this to come for you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's hopefully just opening doors for the next thing. It's always just so exciting to have open air, as much as it's obviously nerve-wracking, doing what we do, it not really knowing what's next. That's also the beauty of it, is that suddenly you're in what's next and going, oh wow, okay, could
Yeah.
never have anticipated this is what it would be. And so I look forward to seeing what it is that reveals itself to me as my next bit of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited for this record. And when the record comes on, come back on the show. Let's talk about it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure it gets into your hands.
Yeah.
I'm excited to share it. It's been a good labor of love this year. I didn't anticipate this entire year was going to be turned into making an album. So that was definitely related to COVID and the state of the world. So it was one
Yeah.
good thing that came out of it for
Yeah.
me.
You kind of took my next question. So then final question is what's been keeping you inspired?
Yeah, I think music and just creativity. I really thrive off a sense of purpose, and that's also something I've had to sort of examine within myself. What does that mean if I'm, jobless at a time? Do I suddenly feel like I don't know who I am, and
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing? But I think, in you having the show and in so many people now wearing many different hats, I think it's so important to just keep creating in some way,
Yeah.
just to keep that muscle of creativity sort of moving. And so for me, it's been, well, what is available to me? If I don't ever want to have my creativity be governed by an industry that says, yes, you can work, or no, you can't.
Totally.
It's either like, okay, yes, here's this job for you. And if I don't have anything, then can I make something for myself? And that's music or a music video, or even just life. I think life as creativity, or approaching it a little more ceremonial. You can be just as creative, cleaning your house or putting together a home or making a meal, or exploring different conversations with people. And I think for me, that's been the biggest thing to keep inspiring. And also I found in the past year, just really trying to stay in touch with the world a little bit more. It's easy to be kind of like really self-involved as an artist. And then I realized the more I actually reach out and look out into the world and see, how other people are experiencing it, the more I can kind of get out of my own head and my own ego and just be a part of humanity in a way, which has been just really nice thing to kind of visit and stay grounded in, just like be a human being that's taking part in the whole global organism thing, if possible.
Yeah. I'm trying to not get disillusioned and be a better human myself. It's a process of trial and error, but man, this was such a pleasure. You're a beautiful artist, and I'm so excited. You're just getting started, dude. You're gonna go so far.
Thanks, man.
And when you're ready to do a show in New York, let me know. I always got friends doing shows, so I can help you put something together.
Rad. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love playing New York. It's really fun.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited to do that. I'm excited to see live shows again and be a part of live shows again.
Me too. I'm
It'll
like
be
so
really
worried.
nice.
They're starting to cancel some of them, so I'm like, fuck.
I know.
Yeah.
I really feel for especially career musicians who don't do other things. It's been crazy to watch them sort of be rendered like non-essential. It's so strange.
There's so many friends of mine that do the career thing and taught for survival. Now all those music schools have closed, and now they're just like, it's like, oh man, it's so bleak.
Yeah, it is. I think we were talking about, just for a minute, like being a better person. I think it's just the time for all of us to look at what our role is as a species on this planet, and what's important, and how to move forward, because it really is, things are changing a lot, but there seems to be a grip on trying to keep things the way they've always been, which are just so clearly are not working, because we're dealing with this, infectious disease, and the climate sort of deteriorating. It's really sad, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for hope and change, and that really, really relies on us, as individuals, just going, okay, how can I examine my role in all of this, and it starts with me. So what changes do I make towards that? And what's important? Is it like art and music and, you know, gardening and cleaning up after ourselves, or is it still capitalism and money and
I think that
success? And
capitalism's the root of all the problems, if you
I've
ask me.
opened a can of worms we
Yeah.
don't have time for. Sorry.
On that note, it's so
Nice
rad.
one.
Yeah.
Cool.
So much
Oh,
love,
man.
man. Stay in touch and come back
Yeah,
on
you
when the
too,
record's
dude.
out.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
All right.
Have
Two
a
sec.
great day.